Welcome to Perennia's second webinar of the Preparing for Retail Success series, provided to you by our Agri-Food Funding Program. Today's topic will be part 2 of Business Planning 101. If you missed part 1, I will share the YouTube link, the recording in the chat. My name is Emily Page, and I'm a food scientist with Perennia Food and Agriculture. We offer a wide array of services to support Nova Scotia's agriculture and seafood sectors, such as food safety, agriculture extension, mobile wine bottling, and analytical testing of cannabis, foods, and beverages. At the Perennia Food and Beverage Innovation Center, we work with clients on product development, process improvement, nutritional labeling, and shelf life determination. Our guest presenter today is Gary Morton of Morton Horticultural Associates. Gary has worked in agriculture for 40 years, helping farms and businesses across Canada find new value, success, and profit from what they do. Lastly, just a quick Zoom housekeeping notes. If you have a question during the session, please use the Q&A button, which is located at the bottom of your Zoom window. And please submit questions at any time, as we will be answering them throughout the session. And with that, I'll pass it off to you, Gary. Oh, Gary, you're just on mute. Sorry.
Okay, there. How's that?
All good.
Good. Well, welcome, folks, and glad to see you back this afternoon and see so many people showing up for this important session. I'm looking forward to you joining me to dive into a little bit deeper about future-proofing your business planning. And I'm going to talk about today, the first half is going to be some background material just to get you thinking about the future and planning. And then the second half will take some more deeper dives into the details of future-proofing your business planning as you're going forward. You probably have a number of questions when we start to talk about future-proofing, and it's to think about, like, where is my business going, and where's my industry going, and how can my business succeed in the future? And those are all, it's a really important question to be pondering right now, because there's so many changes going on in the world, which we're going to dive into a little bit deeper shortly. But another question people seem to struggle with a lot is, how do I plan for a future that does not yet exist? And really what you're doing is you're trying to plan for not what will happen, because we don't know what's going to happen, but rather you're trying to prepare for the potential of what could be for your business. So planning is all about planning the steps that your business is going to take to be more successful in the future. Now, the future is uncertain, and I know we're all looking for some kind of certainty in the changing world we're in right now. But I've been through a lot of change over my life, and I just thought I'd share a little bit to get started. Like, as you can see, I've been involved in agriculture for 40 years and business for 40 years, and I've got 40 years of experiences and a lot of ups and downs over the years. And I've had things that were challenges that came along that I didn't think that you probably could overcome to a large degree. But I'll have to admit that planning was what helped me get through all that, and perseverance as we go forward. And one of the things that helped me get through the hard times and find the direction into the future was some advice I got from a friend of mine that his dad I knew quite well. And his dad was a successful farmer, and he started with absolutely nothing and built up to an amazing farm business, very successful farm business. And I asked him one time, like, because he lived through a lot of really turbulent times as well, and he came from a very turbulent background. And I asked him one time, what kept him going? How did he keep going through all the hard times, and what kept him confident that he was making the right step? And he told me, which I always remember, is he said, I always believed that tomorrow and next year will be better than this year. And he said, it always turned out to be true. So a lot of this, as I say, going forward and looking at future planning, is believing that this is going to work for us, and you're going to find a new path to the future, to success. What I'm trying to do today is to get stuff on your radar screen, trying to point out the things you need to be thinking about for the future and get you on a path to moving your thinking and your business planning in a new direction, not focused on just on what's happening to you today, because that's important that you need to look at what's going on today, but the really important things are what's going to happen in the future. And to understand the future as best you can, you need to think about some things. And as I mentioned earlier, there's no way we know for sure what's going to happen, but we can help prepare for what could happen. My dad always gave me some important advice, and one of the important pieces that I sometimes even forget today is the most important lessons in life come after you think you know everything. And this is pretty important today because in most businesses, we're being forced to pivot. Depending on the sector you're in, I'm not sure the industry that you're in here today, but there either is opportunity or there's not as much opportunity as there used to be. There's change and uncertainty that maybe wasn't there before. And you're asked to go in a new direction, or you need to go in a new direction and need to pivot. And part of what we're talking about today will help you pivot, because the more you can think about the future and think about where it's going and see how your business fits in that, the more likely you're going to be able to deal with the issues that are going to come up and are going to force you to go in a new direction. I don't think any of us knew what was going to happen with COVID. We couldn't ever see that even coming, probably more than anything. Nobody really in our lifetimes have experienced anything like this. So it is really moving into the unknown, but the best way to future-proof your business going forward is to look at the different aspects of your business and think about them and think about changes that you could make. And it's not one big thing. It's always these little incremental things that are going to be moving you forward. So we're going to chat about some of those things here today. An important thing to remember, and if you were in my session last week on business planning and looking at some of the different types of business planning, we did talk about perspective. And this is the really important one too, is that when there's a lot of pressure or tough times or things are hard, sometimes we narrow our perspective down to us and what's just going on right today and what we're feeling today. But it's important to remember that our view of the world is not necessarily the world. So I would encourage you to look out beyond your own business, beyond your own perspective, and get a new perspective and see what's going on in the rest of the world, because there are different opportunities around there. For example, if we looked at COVID, I mean, in the rest of the country, everybody's suffering a lot more than we are in our region because of certain things we've done. So you want to learn from what's going on in different aspects of the world, in different places and different industries, so that you can bring that back, and maybe that's the option for you. It's also important that you know your end game. Now, where is it you want to go? You don't just want to aimlessly be out there doing business and bumping around. You want to have a very clear direction of where you're going. That allows your team, your investors, your lenders, everybody to know what's going on. And it's more likely that you're going to get to where you want to go. We all are facing numerous challenges, whether it's the weather in agriculture, and we can never count on that. If we're in food production, there's challenges with many different things like food safety and all kinds of issues that are probably more than they ever were in the past. But challenges are always going to be there. And we just need to overcome the challenges and find ways around those challenges and over those stumbling stones to get us going forward. And thinking about the environment around us is how we do that. Now, there's also a lot of relentless changes that are going on, and we have to sort of think about those as well. The modern consumer is changing in their needs and wants all the time. It's a challenge for most of us of keeping up with what they want. And when it changes a lot, it's very difficult in most of our systems, because in the food production world, you don't change always that quickly in some of those systems. And especially the larger you are, the harder it is to change. The fourth industrial revolution is one that's come along, and it's changed a lot of the thinking in the world. And if we go back the first industrial revolution was around steam power, and the second one was about mass production and electricity coming into the workplace. And then the third one was the electronic age and the websites and the internet and things. And then the fourth one is now where we're starting to see the physical, the digital, and the biological world all blending together. So we're starting to see technology come into our sector way more than it ever has in the past. And it's actually just revolutionizing many of the production things that are going on. So we have to keep all these things in mind of where we're going into the future and how these technologies and these innovations are going to impact us. So those new technologies could change how we do things. The Internet of Things is how we connect things. And I think the cell phone is probably the most amazing thing that ever came to agriculture, because it just has saved so much time for people, and it's made them more productive and allowed them to tap into information, and it's linking into technology faster and more than we ever thought before. And then there's things like not bog data, but big data and blockchain. And when we're starting to look at the information flow and getting involved in that information flow, whether it's sending information to our customers or receiving it from our customers, or we're sending it to the consumer, there's all kinds of things that are sort of becoming big challenges there as well. And then on top of that, the circular economy, like where recycling has been captured by the consumer as an extremely important aspect of life. And it's changing how we package and we make and we produce and we deliver products. And they're all changes that we have to keep in mind as you move forward into the future to ensure that you have the right strategies for success. I always like this quote by Picasso. It's, "I'm always doing things I can't do. That's how I get to do them." And I think the question we need to ask here is, if it were possible, how would we do what we need to do, or what we think is impossible? But if it were possible, how would we move forward into the future to make our business more profitable, more successful, and more valuable to the consumer? One of the things I've learned is that it's not how fast we run as a business or how high we climb. The future is about learning how well you can bounce. And information is what helps you become a really good bouncer and puts more spring in your feet and allows you to overcome all those obstacles that just can kind of keep falling in front of your way all the time. And if we're thinking that there's going to be a world where there are no challenges, it doesn't really exist. The people that succeed the best in business and into the future are the people that know how to just deal with what comes up, be okay with what happens, and then keep moving forward. COVID-19 changed grocery shopping habits a lot. I mean, these, like I mentioned, these are things that no one could really have imagined. We couldn't imagine that it was going to change the world, and so quickly of what's happened. Food is being delivered in trucks. Now, that is kind of interesting in that I just look out my window and I see the number of delivery trucks that go up and down the street in a day. It's amazing. And bringing food and all kinds of things to people as it's going forward. But what I find interesting about this is when I was a kid, the grocery stores delivered, and it was always kind of interesting waiting to see the delivery truck coming. I mean, at the grocery store, the people that packed your groceries also took it out to your car for you, which is starting to evolve back at many of the grocery stores with the click and pick or pick up, and where they order online and they come to the grocery store and somebody brings it out and they put it in their car and off they go. So there's a lot of conveniences that maybe got lost over time, and they got led by big interests going in a certain direction. So now's the opportunity to rethink some of these things and where you can go. Because I really didn't imagine that. I knew that groceries would come in a box sometimes from my childhood there, but food in a box delivered to your door where meals are being prepared and everything step by step is right there for you. And I listened to a presentation yesterday and they suggested that this is a growing trend still. It's continuing to grow, and people through COVID have learned that they can make food at home, and they want to be able to do some more things at home, and they're investing into programs like this. So the opportunities for the future are to consider where my food is being delivered and how I might be part of all those things. You know, is there room in that box for my product? Is there a room for me to create my own box of products? Is there room for me to work together with some other people to make this happen to get to the consumer? I thought it was also interesting to see that food in a box is now delivered to your pet. And this example of farmer's dog, there's quite a few of them out there now. But if you think about in Canada, there's 16.5 million cats and dogs in the country. There's a lot of opportunity there for taking care of those people. And if you look down in the bottom left corner here, you see the prices range from $2 a day for these meals to $12 a day. So if we take that out to a year, we're talking like $700 at the minimum to probably $4,500 roughly at the top end. So people are spending possibly more money on their pets for food than they are for their kids. And that's an interesting concept as we're moving forward. So the world is changing and it's different, and we need to think about where our products fit in all of this changing, wonderful world that's out there. And I had to throw this one in just because I think it's kind of interesting. Nearly $500 million was spent in America in 2019 on Halloween costumes for pets. So you can see where money is moving. You can see some of the markets that are different than they were. It's quite different from when I grew up, and people gave you a dog. You didn't have to pay for one, and dogs ate table scraps and all those kind of things. Now they're eating gourmet meals. So the marketplace is changing. What you thought was the market before, maybe a different market going forward. And these are all things to keep in mind when we're trying to future-proof our business for the next steps. And what this tells me is that there really is infinite opportunity out there. There's opportunities based on whatever I'm going to think up, whatever I can come up with in my mind that can make it happen. And there really is no limit. So whatever you think is possible may be possible out there. So don't get limited by past thinking. It's probably time for you to shift some gears, and the past doesn't have to equal the future. I think that you can carve a new future. This is what the session is about, looking at information, looking at ways that we can carve a new path to the future. And it's really important that we take these steps. So I want you to join me as we peel back the curtain on how to future-proof your business planning in the next session here. But first, before we do that, I'm open for any questions. So if we can take a pause for a minute. If there's questions, I'll try to answer them right now. If not, Emily, we'll move forward.
We do have a question in already. And if
Sure.
you have any questions, submit them now. So the one that's already in is, it's a bit long, but I'm struggling with the end game. I'm 55 and have been growing my small business for the past 9 months. I've purchased some equipment to save labor and expedite production. My products are in some stores and I've kept building for growth, but short of working with a co-packer, when is enough enough? Do I look at what income I hope to achieve, then backwards engineer the number of products it will take, how many per month, weekday, etc., and then build for that? Not sure if my end game should grow, then sell, or when I have staff, do profit share with a path to succession planning.
Well, there's a lot of pieces to that question. I'll see what I can remember here. As I would say, one of the most important things is to re-engineer backwards, like to find out what the markets that you have, and focus on is there growth potential in those markets, and what am I going to need for infrastructure and people and all those kind of things to make it go forward. But then start to go backwards and think about, okay, this is what I need to have for market. That means I need to produce this amount per week or month or day. And that also leads you back to the kind of production facilities that you're going to need. I really think that in this time that you have to be very careful about taking too much risk. And it's really best to work with what you have. And the opportunity is once you solidify your markets really good with the people that you have, then you can work with them to see about how you can grow that business and grow that market share. And it's easier to work with the people that are already buying from you because they already have established relationships and those kind of things than to try to find new customers. Now, not that you shouldn't go constantly looking for new customers, but this is the path that probably is safest, risk-free, or I shouldn't say risk-free, but reduces the risk as much as possible, is if you work backwards from what you have and build something nice and strong that actually then you can start to focus on going forward again. Now, it's difficult to think about the investments that you might have to make, and those are the risks that you're taking sometimes. But bringing in some people and profit sharing with them are ways to motivate people to go forward. I think it's always useful that you help involve your team into what you're doing and they understand where the business is going, what are the nuts and bolts that are going to make the business work and profitable. And those are the things that are going to help you be more successful. I'm not sure that really answered everything in a really clear, direct method, but if you want to chat about it, feel free to give me an email and I'd be glad to talk to you about that in more depth. So.
Yeah, I agree. We'll be sharing our contact information at the end of this. So if you have any further questions or want to elaborate on that one, feel free to reach out to Gary afterwards. But that's it, Gary. So you're good to go.
Good. Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, like if it were possible to future-proof your business planning, like how would you do that? Well, what I've learned over the years or observed a lot and experienced a lot in my businesses that I've been involved in and the things that I've done, it's never just one big thing. Like I know we all look for one big thing. We want one big thing to come and fix everything, but it's not one big thing. It's like small, consistent daily changes in key areas that leverage your future potential. It's taking action, small actions that over a period of time result in bigger actions. Like just 1% change in your business in a month or 6 months or a year has a profound effect on the future and where you're going. So incremental small changes, if you can do those changes in a whole bunch of areas, then you see a lot more change as you're going forward. I used this slide in my last presentation to show you that as a business, there's a lot of things going on. Like, there's 7 areas that I've identified here that I always believe are key areas within your business. There's the business, there's the customers, the products, the marketing, the sales, the growth that you're looking for, and the entrepreneur needs as well. And then there's many, many different things. You can see the little bubbles coming out from there, but that's only capturing a small amount of the things that are possible. But there's so many things going on. And as we get bigger and grow, this just gets worse, if more challenging as you're going forward. And today there seems to be this fallacy that everybody thinks that multitasking is really what we can do with technology and all those kind of things. And young people are so much better at this, but studies I've seen have shown that we're not very good at this. Even young people are not good at this. They think they are, but they're not necessarily all that good. It seems from the outside, but I know as you get older and you get more pressures and those kind of things, having multiple things coming at you are just not as easy to manage as they were when you were younger. So to be able to look at the different aspects of your business and put the pieces together strongly moving forward is really the key here. What I'm talking about is tightening up the nuts and bolts in the business, all those little loose things, and you're going to strengthen each of these areas. We want to look at some of the things today that will allow you to tighten up that business, to make it stronger, and that's going to better position it for the future, and it's going to help you think about the things for the future so you can prepare better. My thinking is that you need to value add everything you do. And I know lots of times when people look at value adding, they just think about the product. Okay, we're going to, do something to increase the value here. But you can increase the value in everything that you do within the business, in each aspect of the business. When we look at all those different ones that I just mentioned, those elements, if you could just have incremental change in each one of those, add some value so that they're a little bit better, they're a little bit stronger going forward, then you're going to see significant change over your business over a period of time. Now let's have a look at the business here. I'm going to go through each one of these elements and I'm going to talk about some of these things in detail. The business, and I use the blocks here like the honeycombs, which I guess they could be the heads of nuts and bolts and the wrenches tightening them, but I use it more from looking at it from like a honeycomb, because the honeycomb, when you build it nice and strong together, it's what gives you strength. And it goes away from all those pieces flying all over the business and you're having to deal with different things. It gets you focused on different aspects. So if you look at your business specifically and you think about, okay, there's three things that you're sort of always dealing with. Maybe sometimes there are conflicts in your business, but they're the needs of the business, the needs of the customer, and the needs of the entrepreneur or the owners of the business. So there's always these three conflicts kind of taking place within the business. So to be able to think about clearly that what are the needs of the business going forward, what are the needs of our customers, and what are the needs of the entrepreneur. And we'll go into some of these in more detail in some of the next slides. Now, we go back and think about, okay, you've got a business model that you're operating under, and we talked about some different structures in the past. But what is the business model that is required going forward? Does the one that you're using now work? Do you need a new business model? What would that business model be if you were going forward? Now, some of these questions that I'm asking here, we have a handout that Emily will be sending out later today, and it lists a lot of these questions under all these topics. So you won't miss those. They'll be available to you through that handout. So I just wanted to make that clear before I go too much farther. But the business model is really important, and what works today might not work in the future. And how do I tweak that business model continuously, really? Because it's dynamic. You're always trying to change your business model to be better and to work better and to operate better. There's also some kind of strategic plan that you have for the business. This is the big picture of where it's going. What does the business aspire to? What do we need to achieve? Why are we here? And you're integrating that plan in with the business model and those business needs, customer needs, and entrepreneur needs to sort of make everything else work in the business. Now, I'm going to go through the next ones and not necessarily in any specific order, but they're all important things that you have to look at. You're looking to get a return on investment for your business investors or your owners or the entrepreneur. So it's really important going forward that the business is very clear about what that return on investment has to be. You don't want to go working for the next 10 years and find out that there's no money left in the bank at the end. You want to really focus on how do we make money and make sure that we have what we need. Financial relationships. It's very important in business to build your financial relationships early before you need them. So you want to keep in good communication with your lenders and your investors and all those people that are going to help you do the financial things you need. Because cash flow, is really probably the most critical thing. You'll hear people say cash flow is king, but it's super important. If you have money flowing, you can get yourself through a lot of rough times. But if you're having cash flow issues, that's probably the reason you're going to go out of business more than your business not being profitable. It's cash flow is king, and keep that in mind. Do you have the quality products moving forward into the future? Are these the products that you have today going to work in the future? The business operations, like what are the key performance indicators that we could be integrating here to be able to make our business work more efficient, the production systems to be more efficient? Because you constantly are trying to make your business more efficient And the more efficient you can make it, the more time it frees up for the owner as well, or the manager. What infrastructure and equipment are we going to need taking the next step? And that is a big challenge. And that comes back to, how are we going to finance that infrastructure? If we look at the human resources, from a business point of view, you need human resources to make the business operate. And are you putting the team of people together that can actually help you get to where you need to go? Now, again, we're focused on innovation and technologies, and all these things are heading us from different directions, and we have to be able to sit down and filter out what is really important and what we need to build into the business to make it more successful. Now, the business, if you remember my diagram, it's at the core of that honeycomb. And the reason I put it at the core is that often we get focused on all the other things, the customers and the products and sales and all those things, and forget about the business. And the business is key to the long-term success. Products are going to come and go, but the business, you hopefully are going to want it to be there long-term and strong. So focus on these things for the future. Ask yourself these questions, and by asking these questions, it's going to come up with some answers that will help you plan for the future. Now, the entrepreneur. And this is another area that sometimes we forget about, because the entrepreneur is the one driving the business, and we think that the entrepreneur knows the answers to everything and has all the answers. But they don't necessarily, because lots of times they're moving into areas that they've never been in before. They're excited about where they're going, and they're confident that they can make things happen. But they're, again, focused on, they have to get a return on their investment of time and money and energy. They need to keep their shareholders or investors happy. They need to have a strategic vision that is laying out the future of where the business needs to go, and that has to be shared with the staff. And that's all part of the leadership, is really being able to share that vision with your team to help them, or let them help you get to where you need to go. Now, there's three things that a good leader really needs to do, present and the future, is be a leader, offer leadership, take that strategic vision, be in control of it, and, drive the company, be the champion for the company going forward, and take it into the future, confidently take it into the future. A good leader also has to learn to solve problems. And if you're not a good problem solver, you need to bring some people into your team that can help you solve those problems. And you also need to be good at finding the resources. So leaders are people that, can take that vision and champion it. They can find the resources that your people need to be successful, and you can solve problems. The other thing, as an entrepreneur, you're trying to get out of the business is you're really trying to get three important things out. I mean, you're doing all this for a reason. And if it's the return on your investment, but there's an income that you need to get out of the business in the short term. You need an income for a good living. So the business has to be able to deliver you a good income. The business needs to deliver you money for your retirement. And the business needs to be able to develop assets and grow the value of those assets over time, so that eventually you can either sell those assets or pass the business on to someone else in the family. And then we look at these other things that, you're always faced with as an entrepreneur, like motivation is one that you need to think about and keep yourself motivated. Building a network of people can keep you motivated, because that's where you find the other mentors that you can talk about the future, you can talk about what you're doing, and you can find new direction through some of that. There's learning skills that you're going to do, and as an entrepreneur, you have to keep learning. There's no end to the learning. Being a really good delegator is super important, because that frees up your time and it takes a lot of stress away. Mentors, as I mentioned, finding people that you can bounce ideas off of and talk about. And probably most important than anything is to make sure that you're keeping your health and wellness good and in good sound for the future, because you're not going to get to the future if you're not healthy. The customer. It's very important when we start to think about, before the product even, to think about the customer. Like, who is the best customer that we have right now, or that we want to have? And Also compare that to who's the best future company for the business, because sometimes the customer isn't necessarily that you have aren't necessarily the best customers. You could get better customers, and you want to keep focusing on trying to get that in that direction. Then customer product alignment is super important, that you're aligning your products with those best customers. And sometimes we get stuck in producing products that are very easy and convenient for us to produce and forget that maybe it's just not what the customer wants anymore. And that's why our sales are declining or falling off. And we also need to think about what other products do they buy, and where do they buy them, and who do they buy them from, so that maybe we can expand the product lines into the future, and we can compete in new areas and be more successful with those customers. Because as I mentioned earlier, like, the best customers are the customers you already have, and they're more likely to buy new products from you than they are from somebody else. So those are things to all build on and think about. And it's really important that you know your customers better than anybody else. Like, you want to be able to almost read the minds of your customers. Like, so when you offer them something new, they go, that is so amazing. That's exactly what I wanted. And that's how well you have to know your customers today. So spending the time with the customers is super important as we move into the future. We have to know why they buy, how they buy, where they're going to buy products from, and we need to know how we're going to improve that customer service that we offer. And going into the future, I believe customer service is going to be a bigger issue that you're going to have to deal with. It doesn't matter whether you're growing, products from the field, or you're selling really processed products. Anywhere, like, improving the service to your customer is going to be key to success. There's three things that I always think that are also pretty important with customers, and we're going to touch on some of these in some different areas as well. But attracting new customers is one of your main jobs with customers, and your marketing group is going to do that. And retaining the loyalty of customers is another big challenge. Converting to sales for customers to more sales and increasing sales is super important. And also, one that often gets forgot is recovering lost customers. And those are people that used to be customers and left for some particular reason. And they are often not too hard to get back if you go back and you talk to them and find out why they left and what happened, and spend some time doing that. And also think about that there's customers that could be lost. So that's why you need to go strong on the retaining and the customers and the loyalty and all those kind of things. And I would really warn us as we're going forward is, and we all get guilty of this, but looking for new customers to come in the front door while you're losing the old ones at the back door. And I think you have to build strong customer relationships going forward. That's what's going to solidify in your future, and it's going to take both you and those customers forward. The product. Now we're finally talking about the product. And the product, in my mind, is probably one of the easier aspects of all this. I mean, it's the harder part when you're getting set up and you're getting it going, and that's where all the focus goes. But as you're going forward, there's a lot of interesting things that have to be looked at here. I mean, there's customer alignment, as we mentioned before, but you have to make sure your customers and your products align up closely, so that there's a congruence there, that people want to buy your products. Because if you don't sell your products, or you can't sell your products, they're going to be stuck in your warehouse there, and that's not going to do you a whole lot of good. You want to constantly look at food safety and the regulations and keep them on the radar screen for the future, because you don't want something coming along that is surprising or different, and that is going to sort of blindside you and give you some serious problems as you're going into the future. I always believe that food safety and regulations, if you can comply with them, that can give you a competitive advantage over people that have trouble complying with them or dealing with them. So it's one of those issues that you really, or a couple of those issues that you really should keep on top of the radar screen. Product quality. Is the quality that you produce today going to be good for the future? Is it going to be necessary or enough to get you there? Pricing is always an interesting challenge. Like, is your product delivering enough value and benefits to the consumer so that your price really doesn't become a big issue? And we're going to have a session in a few weeks on pricing again to go a bit deeper there, and that's probably where we should have that discussion about pricing. But there's also the unique value proposition, like what makes your product better than all the other products in the marketplace. Why would people choose your products over all the other choices that they have? What infrastructures are you going to need going forward, and maybe even today, like to successfully produce and market your products? And that could involve automation and technology, because if labor becomes a bigger issue, automation is going to be one of the answers. In the product line, can you expand the product line out there and offer more products for the customer? And that allows you to get more return for every customer, from every customer. And then innovation in products is just an ongoing thing. You need to look at that innovation and constantly be innovating your products and testing them in the marketplace, trying new things. Don't take the whole bet the whole farm on a new innovation. Like, try something, do prototypes and test and see what the consumer, listen to the consumer, because those are the people that are going to buy your product, and those are the ones that have the best opinions. The market. Now, you're going to produce a product, but you also have to promote your product out there to the world and tell people what it's all about. And there's a lot of aspects to marketing here that are important to follow up on. The market promotion there's so many different ways to promote products today, and I think the online ways are really amazing and interesting as you have new things available to you that maybe weren't there in the past. But there's also that market spend and trade spend balance that you have to look at. And market spend is really the things you're using to promote your product to the world, and trade spend are maybe the dollars you're going to spend within. If you're selling to a grocery store, for example, it would be point of sale materials or advertisements or promotions and things. So you have to consider how those fit into your future as well. You have to ask whether the market channels and segments that you're using are suitable for the future. Are they going to take me into the future? Are the ones I have, are they the best ones I could be in, or should I be looking at new ones? Distribution is also always a big issue. How do I get my products to that marketplace? What are the logistics of that whole thing? Having a product on your warehouse dock is one thing. Getting in the hands of the customer is another thing. And distribution can be a big cost. And the future, it could be very different how that's going to happen. We constantly have to look at brand development. There's no doubt about that. And what's the brand that you want to develop? And is the brand that you have now the right one as you move into the future? The marketing funnel. Creating a marketing funnel is basically you're going to draw people into your business marketing funnel. You're going to develop them along the way, and eventually on the other end, you're going to convert them to sales. So it's really important that you set up some kind of marketing funnel to make sure that that's working good for you. Your USP, your unique selling proposition, and your unique value proposition are really about your competitive advantages and the advantages that you have in the marketplace. And ultimately, your marketing efforts are trying to attract more customers, because you want to bring more people in, but you're also trying to get your ideas out to the world. And you need to develop those new market channels and ongoing market research to find out where the opportunities are, and keep, that's so important for the future, that what's coming down the pipeline, and could we adapt some of our products to some of those markets. The export opportunities could be there for you. Those are things to explore. And then online presence is so important today. That has changed so much in the last year. And from all indications, that's going to continue. And so many businesses have moved online and skipped going the grocery chain. And I've been very surprised at the people that are quite successful at this and the types of products that they're selling now. So people seem to be able to make it work. So it's worthwhile exploring what's possible online. Then the sales. Marketing brings them in. Sales is really what you're doing to convert those customers over into, or those potential customers or your customers into sales and more sales. And you need to look at your customer service that you're offering. You need to look at the presentation and pitch that you're making, if you have to do that kind of thing, or how you're directly presenting your products to the consumer, if it's through a farmer's market or something like that. You don't want to be sitting there knitting and reading a book. You want to be actively trying to sell your products to people. You need to retain your customers, as we mentioned, and that's one of the key roles of the sales group, is to retain those customers, rescue those lost customers, and convert any leads or potentials into sales. And they're going to use your unique sales proposition, which is a really important little line, or it's the elevator speech that somebody can give very quickly so that they understand the benefits of your product for them. It's really, that's going to address what's in it for me as a customer. And the sales team has to be really good at, focusing on the benefits versus just the features of what this product is. I mean, people really want to know what's in it for me. And that's, as we move into the future, you can just see that is more and more, it's what's in it for me. Why should I buy your product when I have all these other choices out there that I could buy? What's going to make me want to buy your product? You also need to have a good sales team. As you're moving forward, sometimes people don't really put too much effort into sales. It's a partial position for people. They just think, well, it's a matter of taking POs and filling orders. But going into the future, you're going to want people that are going to actively be going out there after sales. You need a sales budget, and you need sales resources to make it all happen. And then those online connections can make sales so much easier today, because they help you build the trust with your customers. And you also need to have a good budget with it all to make it all happen. So you need to budget some money to make your sales happen. And finally, we're looking at growth. And you're going to get to a certain point once you go through, cycles in a number of years. There's only so many years if you're farm producing, like so many crops that you're going to have, and a lot of other businesses, there's only so many cycles. So you're going to get to a point where you want to keep expanding those, and you're going to scale up and grow your business. So you need to have a good vision of the growth. You need to look at what's possible to scale up, and what resources I'm going to need and infrastructures I'm going to need to be able to scale up. And can I do more with what I already have, or am I going to have to make some more investments into that? We need to look at the market research about what's possible out there, and where are the areas that we could actually grow and expand our business. And we need to have a good look at our products and think about, okay, which of our products are the rising stars? Which are the ones that have the growth potential as we're going into the future? And also, which are the ones that are cash cows that we can keep milking? And we need to keep those, protect those, because those are the ones that bring in some consistent cash flow. But we also need to be able to look at the dogs and the problem products and say, maybe some of these we just don't need anymore. We need to cut those out of our lines and focus on the ones that are actually really working for us, and the ones that have the potential for the future. There's growth logistics that have to be looked at. There's growth financing that all has to be considered, and ensuring that there's a competitive advantage. And there's also partnerships you're going to need to develop, and possibly that's sharing some of the infrastructure, or the marketing, or building a team of people that can actually get you to some of those new markets, which could potentially be export. And from listening to the Minister of Agriculture talk yesterday, exports in agriculture and agri-food are huge from Nova Scotia. So I think there's lots of opportunities for the rest of the world for our products, if we go about it. So just in recapping here, we've taken all these different elements, and you can see that the business is really at that core center of it all. And it's important that the business is strong, but it's also important that the entrepreneur, the customer, the products, the marketing, the sales and growth, those areas of the business are also strong. And we're thinking about those all the time collectively, and we're trying to draw them nice and tight together. We're tightening up those loose nuts and bolts in the business to strengthen it, and we're future-proofing ourselves and our planning by doing that, and thinking about the future in relation to each one of these areas. last time we talked about future business planning and some of the models like strategic planning, business planning, the lean canvas plan, the envelope plan. But I think if you've future proofed your thinking and you've gone down the path of what we've just talked about and looked at these different elements, no matter which one of these you choose or you need to do, you're going to be so much better prepared for the future because you've thought about things that you maybe wouldn't have thought about otherwise, and you're going to be much better prepared to take your business forward and into the future. So as I showed you this slide last time, this 65 Mustang convertible, you have a nice, you're in the driver's seat and you're ready to go forward into the future when you're well prepared. We don't want this to happen because you're not prepared. I'm going to leave you with a final quote. And this is from Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens. Plan for the future because that's where you're going to spend the rest of your life. And I'd really like to encourage you to plan for the future. I know it's difficult when you start to think about we're planning for something we don't know it's going to exist. But if you start to think about all these different elements that we have available to look at in our business, and we think about them, you're going to be so much better prepared going forward. If you use the resources that we have that Emily's going to send you and go through those step by step, I think you're going to find that you're going to be in a better position to take your business forward. So just to remind you that join us for Pricing 2, which is getting more success from your pricing strategy, a deeper dive. It's going to be Wednesday, November the 17th at 12 noon. And Emily will send you more information about that, I'm sure. So now we have some time for questions.
Thanks, Gary. We already have a question here waiting for us, which is, would you recommend Google or Facebook analytics to understand the demographics of your customers?
Yes, I think that's a really important thing to look at. It's one of the pieces of the puzzle. What you're trying to do when you're trying to look at your customer, you're trying to understand that customer really well. So if Google Analytics can help you figure out that customer better, all the power to you. I think that's one of the tools that you should be able to use. You have to sort of dive into the psychoanalytics or psychographics of your customers as well. Like you're trying to get into their mind. Like, what do they buy? Why do they buy? What do they search for? What are they doing? Along with, just the demographics of who they are. And the more you can narrow that demographic down, the better you are. I know it seems counterintuitive sometimes to think about, we want to narrow the market down smaller, but you can't be everything to everybody. And the more that you know about your customer and you know who that customer is and you narrow down, then you can adjust and target and refine your offers and your products for those people. And that comes back to what I said earlier about, when they see your product, they go, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. You read my mind. And I think any tools that you can use to do that, those are great. Those are very helpful.
Agreed. Okay, we have another one in. I think it's adding on that. And are there better tools to seek out those psychographic elements?
Well, I think those ones I really don't have any in my pocket that I could suggest, but there's so many things online today that you can use and search and check out. I think the analytics are definitely an important aspect of all that, but being able to look at, once you understand who that customer is, then there's a lot of things that you can look at. You can find out, where do those people shop? What do they do? You can look at other trends out there. I often use backdoor kind of thinking. Like you start to talk to, when you know who the customer is, then you start to talk to suppliers and other businesses and those kind of things to sort of understand those people as best you can. Sometimes universities have some studies and things, but I find that a lot of the information that's out there from studies can be very expensive when you're starting to look at consumers. And I honestly don't always find it all that valuable. Like, I think one of the best places to go learn about people is to talk with them. And whether that's a farmer's market, when you're able to do that, because you can directly talk to the person, you can ask them those questions. You can use those old why, ask them why 5 times, and just keep going deeper and deeper. Why they buy, why they do things. And you can also do that if you have an email list of people, of customers. Like if you have a newsletter or something, like you can start asking questions to people and start to learn about them. And they'll, if they think your business is good and you're not trying to abuse them and those kind of things, I think they'll probably help you develop your product. If you're open with people and say, look, I want to learn more about what you think, why you buy my product, all those kind of things. The persons that you want to talk to about your product are the people that are going to buy it or potentially buy it. And that's where you're going to get your best information. If you think about statistics and say, well, this market is this big or that big, or our target market is people that are 19 to 65. I mean, those are so huge. Like, you want to pull it down to the real people and to get information from real people and information that you can actually act on.
Yeah, we actually got one suggestion in from someone, and they said that a COA provides detailed information on statistics, demographics, and information. So that could be one place that someone's recommending.
Yeah, and COA does. And I think there's also information that you can get from some of the other agencies that are out there. Like, there's lots of studies that are done, and you just have to keep on top of those things. And just ask, I guess, more than anything is ask. But the broader studies are useful in helping you understand maybe if there is a market opportunity in the big picture, but you really need to keep drilling down and get as close to that end consumer as you can and find out from them.
Yeah. So there's no other questions, but Gary and I will be here for a few more minutes. So if there's anything else on your mind, please put it in now. But in the chat, I have put last week's YouTube recording. So if you want to click on that before we close out here so that you have it in your browser. And I also shared next week's registration link, which is with myself and Peter Chapman, and he will be going over 3 steps to a successful online food business. So join us again for that. And the one that Gary shared is the next session he's doing with us, which is on pricing for profit part 2, which we did the first part last year, and everybody wanted to learn more. So we are adding on to it. We don't have any other questions that have come in. So thanks, Gary, for presenting today. If you have any questions on this webinar or the series, our contact information is on the screen. Also now on your screen, the Minister of Agriculture conference this year has moved to digital as well. So here's a list of the titles of the sessions that they will be covering. Information for this is also on Perennia's website. So if you'd like to register for those, please pop on there. We actually have like 3 webinar series going on right now. So be sure to give our website a look for that. And yeah, I think that's it. We will see you all next week, hopefully. And this is an 8-part series. This was number 2. So we have lots more on the go for the Preparing for Retail Success series. And hopefully we'll see you again.